What's going on, guys? We are back here again today for another installment on our Shop Talk with Savage series. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. For anybody new, welcome to the channel. Appreciate you guys stopping in. For anybody new, this is basically just like an open discussion series where we talk about various things surrounding shop culture, shop talk, people working in maybe dealerships, independent shops, could be service stuff, performance stuff. And, if you've been an advisor, a tech, a shop type person, this maybe could potentially be interesting for you. So if you're new, check it out, subscribe for more. This might be something you decide to listen to like in the background if you're working on something, or maybe you're driving to work. Just, feel free to minimize the tab and join me for this basic discussion. So this time around, guys, we're going to be talking about rescue projects. Let's first talk, what is a rescue project? So basically, a lot of times what happens is you've got customers, oftentimes it might be a younger guy. This is typically going to be a project car that has got some various history behind it. We're talking an older vehicle, typically something probably at least, 10 years old, give or take, maybe a little bit older. It's probably had multiple owners, could be a history of modifications. Maybe it's got some aftermarket stuff, could be some lower quality parts, maybe it's a built motor, maybe the guy who built the motor didn't do a very good job, maybe the guy who tuned it wasn't a good tuner, passed hands multiple times, this guy kind of reached his limit where he couldn't figure it out, then he sold it, went to the next guy, he still couldn't figure it out. This is probably a car that might have been towed in and out of multiple shops, and it's just something that the guy wants to see the finished results of a healthy running car. Again, probably to some degree a little bit more on the performance side. This is kind of the hopes and dreams to finally get that 2004 G35 running with that single kit on there, blah blah blah. And a lot of times these are very difficult projects to take on for your independent repair facilities. Now, there's an old saying, anything can be fixed with enough time, money, and resources. The problem is a lot of times with these types of cars, again, those rescue projects, you got a younger guy, basically just starting out. He probably bit off more than he can chew, right? Maybe you scraped together your last 10 grand, you bought that G35 with that built motor and that twin turbo kit that you thought was a good deal, and you just have no comprehension of the realistic cost of what it takes to support something like that. And I've seen this time and time again, myself, if you don't know, I've been a service advisor in traditional repair facilities as well as aftermarket shops that do more performance, dyno tuning, fabrication, force induction kits, all that kind of stuff. So I've definitely kind of seen both sides of the coin. Now, for small shops especially, guys, it is critically important to stay on top of your workload. You want to make sure you've got work coming in, but it needs to be the right type of work. Flat rate techs, these are guys that need jobs to be done. These guys have to turn hours. They've got to make their pay. We've got to make sure that we're able to efficiently scale our time and resources within that shop setting. So basically what I'm getting at is, I'm not saying that we're not going to take a look at X, Y, and Z. Maybe there's a car that has some extensive history of some, various problems, something that's going to be more expensive, more time consuming. I'm not saying that we're not going to at least make effort to take in this type of work. It's just that we cannot have an extensive backlog of rescue projects and be an efficient shop that covers payroll, covers our bills, and terms of profit. Oftentimes what happens with the rescue project inquiry is you've got a guy, he'll describe something on the phone, and you can already tell, we're talking a car, it's got, maybe somebody tried to rebuild a motor, it got tuned by this guy, then it went to this guy, then there's an electrical problem, then he's going to tell you that, I spilled a 2-liter of Mountain Dew in the back seat. So inevitably what happens is, these guys, they feel like they're grabbing at like their last hope. They've called this shop, they've called this shop, they've called that shop, and it's just like they're describing just the degree of complexity surrounding their problem. And a lot of times shops just, listen, man, I'm so sorry that you're going through this. I wish I could help you out, but based on our existing workload with what we've got going on, it's just not a project that we have the ability to take on, right? Because when you have a car that, again, we're talking something that's been towed out of multiple shops, the customer, a lot of times, he doesn't have the understanding, he doesn't have the funds to really support it. It's really just not going to be income producing activity for these types of shops. And you just have to tell the guys no. One thing I would do as an advisor working in these types of settings is I would say, hey man, I appreciate you reaching out. Definitely sounds like an interesting project. What I'm gonna have you do is just go ahead and send me some information in an email format. Let's get some pictures of the car. If you could describe to me, the history of it, whether it's, again, your stock motor, built motor, what kit's on it, who tuned it, what was the last thing that was done, X, Y, and Z. Give me details, give me context. And then from there, we're gonna partner with the team, we're gonna review it, and then from there, we'll determine if that's a project that we're able to take on. Most of the time, guys like, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. He's going to send over that email. And obviously, there's going to be a lot that you can learn from the pictures. So again, we're not trying to knock anybody here. We're not trying to put anybody down. I'm not trying to crush your hopes and dreams. It's just that you have to understand from a business standpoint, these shops, they're very expensive to run. And we have to focus on productivity. We have to focus on efficiency. And we're talking about a car that, hey man, it's got a built motor, I left the sunroof open, it got rained in. Another shop already told me that, it needs a new engine harness, but I don't really want to pay for that. And it's just like, dude, you gotta face the reality here, bud. Like, you bought somebody else's problem and you keep kicking it down the road. It's just like, you're gonna have issues. And there's really no shortcuts. If you want it done right, it's gonna be expensive. That's gonna cost you right there. Now, again, depending on the experience level of your team, if you've got some guys that, hey, we really specialize in, we do custom fabrication, we do electronics, we have the ability to pinpoint, diagnose, and troubleshoot these advanced electrical issues, and the guy's got the money and you can actually get it done, hey, by all means, I'm not saying say no to money, but you just need to have a realistic understanding from the customer's position. Like, you got a young dude, he just shelled out his last few bands. He's already telling you that, like, somebody told him that he needs to fix X, Y, and Z, and he's like trying to find like another place that's just gonna tell him that, oh yeah, good news, man, it's something cheaper. Just a waste of time. It's just a waste of time. You don't have the money for it. It doesn't need to be in the shop. It doesn't need to be scheduled. So that's just the brutal truth about it, guys. Let me know in the comment section if you've been an advisor, if you've dealt with these kind of situations before. It can definitely be very challenging. You always want to make sure you've got service waivers in place, because a lot of times these guys, they get desperate, and a lot of times customers, they will point fingers. And if there was already something that they broke themselves, and then if you don't have a picture, you don't have the documentation in place just to show them, like, hey, listen, man, upon arrival your car had this, and this was already damaged, finger pointing can start happening, man. So you definitely got to make sure that your business is going to protect itself at all times. The proper documentation, everything is in writing. You've got a service waiver signed before you put hands on the vehicle. Now, something else I will mention regarding these types of projects is a lot of times us as people, we obviously have compassion and understanding for these guys. Perhaps a younger person, they ended up with this type of project. They're in for a lot deeper than they had originally bargained for, and you kind of end up just feeling bad for them. You reach a certain point where it's like, we're already a couple hours in this, right? Like, you're already at like several $100. We're gonna have to go a little bit deeper and tear down further before we can really get you those answers that you're looking for. And it's just like, customers, they have that feeling, ah, man, you're just beating me over the head with this diagnostic cost. We've got to be fair to the technicians, right? We got to make sure those guys are taken care of for their time. We're already talking putting a couple hours in the car, and then it's like, oh, by the way, can you look at this, and this? It's like, no, dude, we're going to do some heavy diagnostics. It's going to come with a cost, and it's just that simple, right? So don't let them manipulate you and feel bad for them, and then you end up like undercharging, right? Because it's like, dude, I'm not running a charity here. We're running a business to stay in business and make a profit. So again, these are all things you have to be very careful with, and always got to have the right documentation. So that's just kind of my rant for the day, guys. Hopeless rescue projects, just telling it like it is. I'm not here to sugarcoat anything, right? If you're the kind of guy, if you have the knowledge, the resources, the time, the experience, the tools, the shop, like, hey, if you're one of those kind of people where you can pretty much just fix anything, then like, dude, buy that project, man. Like, if you can just make miracles happen, if you're like the mountain sage, if like you're the guru, dude, by all means, like, make it happen, dude. Make it happen, share it, post it, this, that, and the other. But if you're starting out, you're just kind of getting your feet wet into the world of cars, especially kind of that performance side, just make sure you understand what you're getting into, man, because you will be soon discovering that a lot of times shops, they're just not going to take on those types of projects. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you sticking around for this rant on today's video, and yeah, stay tuned, more episodes to come.